let's unpack this. You want to get a better handle on English and fast, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, you've landed in the right place because today we're going straight to the core verbs.
Yeah, the absolute bedrock.
Think of them as the engine room of the English language.
Yeah.
Get these sorted, and suddenly, well, a whole lot more becomes possible.
And what's really interesting here is that even with, say, a limited vocabulary, if you have a strong grasp of the fundamental verbs, you can actually communicate surprisingly well. It's about understanding the action, the state of being, the connection. Mastering these early on is kind of like unlocking a secret code to expressing yourself more clearly.
That's right. And this isn't just, a random list we came up with. We're actually digging into key concepts from a resource many learners find helpful. The Spoken English in 40 Days series.
Oh yeah, that one.
Specifically, we're zoning in on day 7, which really pinpoints those essential verbs you absolutely need to know.
And if we look at the bigger picture, you could think of this deep dive as your shortcut, really.
Yeah. How so?
Well, instead of wading through endless lists, we're pulling out the real workhorses, the verbs you'll bump into and use constantly. Our mission is basically to make this clear, practical, and definitely not overwhelming.
Right, giving you the most bang for your buck learning-wise.
Exactly. Maximum impact for your time.
All right, so let's get down to it. Our source material kicks off with what it calls basic verbs in everyday use. And these really are the foundation, like the ones you can't have a conversation without. First up, be.
Precisely. Think of am, is, and are. They're like the fundamental connectors in so many English sentences.
Connectors, okay.
They tell us the state of something or someone, which is, often the starting point for saying anything more detailed. Mastering the forms of be isn't just about identifying things. It's really the foundation for describing states, feelings, even more complex stuff later on, like passive voice, continuous tenses, things that give your English nuance.
Right. So the simple examples, straight from our source. I'm happy. That am links I to happy. Simple enough.
Yeah.
Then she is a teacher. Here is identifies her job. And finally, they are students, where are describes what they do. Pretty fundamental stuff, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's worth pointing out how the forms change. Am only goes with I.
Right.
Is for singular subjects, he, she, it. And are is for the plurals, we, you, they. It seems small, but getting it right really helps build confidence.
Definitely. Okay, next basic one. Have. Now this one feels pretty straightforward. It usually shows possession, right? What you own, what you've got.
Precisely. Think ownership or maybe connection sometimes. The examples are clear. I have a pen, definitely possession.
Okay.
We have a meeting today that shows a scheduled event you're connected to.
Ah, okay. Less ownership. More like it's on your schedule.
Yeah. And she has a dog, back to ownership. It's just a go-to for talking about what's part of your life.
Makes perfect sense. And then we get to do. Now, do is interesting because it's got a couple of main uses, hasn't it?
It does.
It can be an action itself,
Yeah.
but also like a helper word for questions and negatives.
Exactly. That brings up the idea of auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary just means helping.
Right.
So do often helps the main verb. As an action verb itself, you get, I do my homework every day. That's a routine.
Okay.
For negatives, he doesn't do his chores. Here, doesn't, that's do plus not, helps negate the action do chores.
Got it.
And crucially, for questions, do you like pizza? Do kicks off the question. But sometimes I hear learners maybe overusing do when there's a more specific verb they could use. Why do you think that happens?
That's a good question. I think sometimes it just feels like a safe bet.
Yeah.
An all-purpose verb.
BB, yeah.
But you're right, using more specific verbs adds so much more like color and precision to your English. Maybe a good tip is just to ask yourself, wait, is there a better word for this action? Like instead of saying I do cooking, you can just say I cook.
Exactly. It's about building that awareness of the more descriptive options as your vocabulary grows.
Okay, so those are the real bedrock verbs, foundational stuff. With those being, having, and doing verbs sorted, we can move on to describing, the actual things we do all day.
Yes.
Our source calls these verbs of action.
And what's useful about these is how tangible they are. They relate directly to everyday activities, so they're easy to picture.
Right.
And notice how these action verbs really drive the narrative. They let you tell stories, describe what happened, connect with people about shared experiences. Even simple actions can say a lot, depending on the context.
Exactly. So we've got go, simple, like I go to school.
Uh-huh.
Then she comes home at 5 p.m., he makes breakfast.
Everyday stuff.
Totally. They take the bus every day, we eat dinner at 8 p.m.,
Yeah.
and I drink water after lunch. Ththese are things we're all doing constantly.
And notice they're often linked with commonplaces, times, objects. Makes them super practical for just chatting about your day.
Right, and the list keeps going with more actions. We've got I see a movie, we watch TV at night.
Okay, see versus watch. Interesting pair there.
Yeah, slightly different focus.
Yeah.
Then she reads a book every weekend.
Yeah.
Right, he writes in his journal.
Uh.
And a nice direct one for you, our listener. You speak English very well.
Huh, nice one. But what's really key about this whole set is how broadly applicable they are. Think about it, leisure time, work time, personal routines. Mastering these really opens up your ability to just describe your day, your life. It's like building a verbal toolbox for interacting with the world.
Absolutely. Morning routine, hobbies, work. Yeah, these action verbs are going to pop up constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, so describing actions is crucial, but to really connect, we need to share what's going on inside. Right?
Thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. That's where these mental and emotional verbs come in, according to our source.
And these are so important because they let us express our inner world, our thoughts, opinions, feelings. They add depth, personality to our communication.
Totally.
These verbs are really the key to sharing who you are. Without them, communication just stays, well, factual, purely descriptive. Understanding the subtle differences between, say, think, know, and believe lets you be much more precise and authentic about your perspective.
Good point. So kicking off this section is think. I think this movie is good.
Yeah.
Simple opinion.
Yep.
Then we have she knows the answer. Certainty.
Okay.
We understand the lesson. Comprehension, like they like music. Preference. Love, he loves his job. Stronger feeling. And finally, hate. I hate waking up early.
Huh. We can probably all relate to that one.
I think so.
But what's really cool here is how these verbs bridge the gap, between the outside world and our inside experience. They let us share not just what we do, but how we feel about things, how we see them.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely key to building real connections through language. You go beyond just listing events and actually share your personal take on them.
Couldn't agree more. Being able to say, I like this or I think that, it just makes conversation so much more real and meaningful, like our source says.
Yeah.
Now, the material we're looking at also includes a bit on practice time.
Ah, yes. Crucial.
Which is a great reminder that just, hearing about these verbs isn't quite enough.
No, this is where the learning really sticks. The source gives example sentences for repetition, like, I have a big family. She goes to work by car. They watch a movie every Friday. He reads English books. I love learning new things.
Right?
Just the act of saying these out loud helps with pronunciation, muscle memory. It reinforces the patterns, makes them memorable.
And I liked this suggestion to change the subject, like take I have and change it to we have or my brother has.
Yeah, that's smart.
It feels like a really active way to engage with the language. Start playing with the grammar yourself. Repetition really does build that confidence. It makes the language feel like yours, not just something you recited.
Absolutely. By changing the subject, you're not just memorizing one sentence. You're getting a feel for how the verb works with different nouns and pronouns. It's flexibility.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of verbs. Loads, actually. Now, how do you actually get these to stick? Our source wraps up with some final tips for learning verbs quickly.
And these are really valuable because they're practical. Not abstract theories, but things you can actually do, like right away.
Okay, first up, flashcards. Good old flashcards. Verb on one side, example sentence on the other. Seems basic, but can be super effective for quick review, right?
Totally. The visual cue plus the context from the sentence helps create a stronger link in your brain. It turns a single word into a little mini lesson.
Yeah. Next, practicing speaking. Either find a friend or, even just record yourself. It can feel a bit awkward at first,
Oh, definitely.
but it really helps you hear how you sound, spot things you want to improve.
The act of producing the language, actually using the verbs in sentences you make up, that's crucial for shifting them from passive knowledge, things you recognize, to active skill things you can use. It's like reading about riding a bike versus actually getting on one.
Great analogy. Okay, another tip. Watch short English videos or listen to songs and try to actively listen for the verbs being used.
Yeah, kind of like verb spotting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a more engaging way to see these words in real action.
And it immerses you in authentic language, Helps you get a feel for how these verbs naturally fit into different contexts, the rhythm of spoken English.
And finally, the advice is just to use the new verbs. Try to slip them into your daily conversations, even if it's just simple sentences. Every little bit helps.
Because it reinforces that language learning is active. You got to use it or lose it, right?
Ugh.
By consciously trying to weave in new words, you make them part of your English.
Yeah.
And the source rightly says, don't be afraid of mistakes, seriously. They are absolutely 100% a natural part of learning.
Everyone makes them.
Everyone, every attempt, every try, even if it feels clumsy, gets you closer, step by step, word by word.
So to wrap things up then, we've really dug into a core set of common English verbs today. Those basics like be, have, do, then a whole load of action verbs for daily life, and those really important mental and emotional ones for sharing your inner world. Hopefully, you're feeling like you've got a much more solid grasp on these essential building blocks now.
What's key now, really, is to take this knowledge and run with it, actively apply it. The more you use these verbs, the more natural they'll feel coming out of your own mouth. Think of each sentence you speak as like strengthening those connections in your brain.
And if you're looking to build on this even more, the original source, Day 8 of that Spoken English in 40 Days series, apparently looks at using these verbs in longer sentences, more complex situations. So, there's always more to explore.
Definitely. Just keep in mind that language learning is a journey. It's a process. Embrace it, keep practicing, and you will keep growing in your ability to communicate effectively. Every new verb you start using confidently is a genuine step forward.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about your own day, your routines, your job, your hobbies, your interests. Which of these basic verbs we talked about today really form the foundation for expressing those things? How can mastering these fundamental building blocks unlock your ability to talk about more complex stuff and ultimately connect better with people?